This is the Talkin Bout the Hoosiers podcast, presented by TheHoosier.com.
Welcome into another edition of the Hoosier.com postgame wrap-up. I'm joined by Kyler Staley, who's in Assembly Hall right now, so you're probably going to hear some background noise from him. I'm Drew Rosenberg. Indiana survived against Incarnate Word today. It was ugly. There's no other way to put it, Kyler. I think we got to start with the three-point shooting. The big question with this team through the first three games was what happens when the threes aren't falling, and we saw it today.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got kind of flashbacks from like the previous 2 years, you know what I mean? Like, you know, these games that you come in, you know, that you're supposed to take care of these, and they're not really supposed to be much of a game. This should be like the best basketball that you're playing, you know, against a lesser opponent. But no, I mean, Indiana, like, I think that they got the lead up at one point to like 19, 20, something like that and stuff. And then they just kept playing with their food, basically, right? And they just kept giving Incarnate Word like just more opportunities to, you know, get back into the game, and they did. They cut the lead down to 5 with, you know, only a few minutes left to go. You know, they were trading buckets, you know, as the game was kind of going back and forth, and you know, it is a question, or it was a question, like, you know, what happens when the 3-point, you know, shot's not falling for Indiana. It looked like their defense, even because Indiana did not have a great offensive game at all. Only shot, well, they shot 43% from the field, but obviously 21% from three, just not great. But then you kind of felt like, okay, maybe the defense is kind of, you know, the defense is picking up, you know, a lot of the slack today and stuff. And you didn't really feel that way either when, you know, Incarnate Word got lead down to like 5 and they were in the game. So just ugly overall for Indiana. There was a few bright spots. Sam Alexis played really well off the bench. Trent Cicely had a pretty good day as well off the bench. Those are two guys that brought some really good energy. You know, sleepy Assembly Hall crowd. So obviously a 5:30 tip-off on a Sunday is just not anybody's favorite spot to play basketball in. But a win's a win. But you can obviously tell that this Indiana team's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to hurt them in the computer rankings. That's just, you know, how that works when you play a team you're supposed to beat big and you play them close. I think, you know, the three-point shooting is one thing. Lamar Wilkerson taking 6 shots in a game he plays 27 minutes can't happen. He's your best scorer. He's a guy, you know, we've seen it all. Like, we've seen it so far. He can score at all 3 levels. He has to shoot the ball more. I know he was 2 for 6, 0 for 3 from 3, but he's that type of scorer that he can get hot any moment, and especially, you know, in that second half when Indiana was really struggling to score and Incarnate Word was on a run, I would have liked to see, you know, more actions to try to get Lamar Wilkerson looks, just because you have such a talented scorer. You got to get him more than 6 shots in a game like this.
Yeah, and it was just, and sorry, Don Fisher's talking over the intercom, so apologies if there's an echo and background noise on here, but you know, yeah, it just felt like, you know, Indiana just, you know, they just weren't locked in for a lot of it and everything. Like I kind of mentioned, they were playing with their food a little bit with that and everything. But you mentioned, you know, obviously Lamar Wilkerson, he's got to get more than 6 shots up, right? You know, it's just, you know, he's not going to have games where he's going to score 15 plus points every single game, but he also needs to take just a lot more. That's what he's brought in to do. He's that shooter. He's that sniper. Tucker DeVries did. He stepped up. You know, he had 13 field goal attempts, only made 4. It was 3 of 11 from 3, so ended up with 14 points. So he stepped up down the stretch. I thought Tate Conaway stepped up. He only finished with 9 points, but I thought he stepped up down the stretch as well. He just seems to be a guy that this Indiana team really trusts, you know, when it comes to these down the stretch type of things. We saw it versus Baylor. And he's also, you know, shown his ability to just be a leader. Okay, so like Indiana needs a bucket or a playmate or whatever. They trust Conaway to be in there and facilitate whatever they need. So, you know, the senior guys step up in that sense, you know, when things look really, really dicey. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a head scratching game for sure. Do I think it's going to be, you know, sustainable? Are they going to obviously play like this a lot more? I don't think so. I think this is probably the game that they kind of needed to be like, hey, we're not that team that can take any team lightly, right? Yeah. We don't have, you know, that luxury of doing that. So it's going to be a wake up call, and I fully expect Coach DeVries to really get after these guys, you know, before they play on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I've, you know, including this game, if I were to say the first 4 games, I like what I've seen as a whole. yes, today was really bad and it's been an improvement, but this is the type of game if you play, if Indiana plays like this against Purdue, Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State, this is a game they lose by 20. And it's got Indiana has to figure out ways to score the basketball when the three isn't falling, and that was kind of the thing all offseason. It was, the lack of bigs and the lack of size more so, and having that true post presence when the 3-point shots aren't falling. And we saw today, the offense went stagnant for a while. You did bring up Tate Conaway, and outside, he was 3 of 10 from the field, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, also 3 blocks, had a chase down block after one of his turnovers, ton of hustle plays. Tate Conaway, we talked about Connor Enright being a guy who does everything, all the hustle plays. Tate Conaway does it too. Like both of them, their ball pressure, their ability to hustle, lay out for loose balls, like they both put it all on the line. And having, your top 2 guards, like guys who are willing to do that, and not just willing, like actively looking to do it. It's a good thing to have for Indiana.
No, it absolutely is. I mean, Indiana, for the longest, really for the longest time, they've been kind of missing a leadership or a leader at the point guard spot. And luckily, Indiana's got 2 really good ones. Connor Enright, you mentioned him. Obviously, we talked about him making the hustle plays and stuff like that. He's that glue guy, the heartbeat of this team and stuff. He also he had a couple really nice offensive rebounds, down the stretch as well that gave Indiana second chance looks. Now, they didn't take advantage of every single one of them, but, just for him to, keep plays alive and, be able to do that. But you mentioned it, Tate Conaway, we do need to start talking about him a little bit more when it comes to the hustle plays and things like that. And, everything, because he is a gamer. That's what he does and everything. And he's just a leader. He's played a lot of basketball. He's been at many different levels. So he's seen it all. He's seen teams like, Incarnate Word. And obviously he's seen teams like a Marquette and, Kansas State coming in next week as well. So, just really, really impressed by him to just kind of, calm the storm a little bit tonight. And just kind of, be that leader that Indiana needs to. And then also I want to throw in Indiana did win the rebounding battle. So we got to give that, 42 to 29. 29 is probably a little bit too many rebounds given up. So
rough start.
Yeah, rough start. And then, you got to give Trent Sisley. What did he finish with rebounding wise? At one point, he had 8.
He finished with 8.
He finished with 8, but still, like in the first half, he came off the bench and, he was making some really, really good plays, and then Sam Alexis, we talk about all the time. Sam Alexis is just the guy that's just so consistent for Indiana. And you just know what you're going to get out of him. And he just does what his role is at a very, very high productive level. So, win's a win, obviously and stuff, but obviously Indiana, they got a lot of work to do. And you've kind of seen it. Obviously it wasn't super, drastic or anything like that, but you've obviously seen it now. Like if this Indiana team is not shooting, they're not fully locked in on defense. It could get really, really dicey, especially when they start to play more talented teams. Like if they play like a Louisville or Kentucky, and this goes again, you might as well just forget it because they'll probably lose by 20 plus points. And that's just being completely honest.
Yeah. Tucker DeVries too, didn't shoot the ball too well, but down the stretch, had a couple big buckets in the offense. He was the one that kind of got the offense back on track down the stretch with a couple big jumpers. Just a guy just reliable. Even, it was 4 for 13 today, but had 2 of the biggest buckets of the game for Indiana. It's having a guy like that, we talk about Lamar Wilkerson and how he didn't shoot enough. Tucker DeVries, 4 for 13. I'd rather Lamar Wilkerson, he was 2 for 6 today. I would have rather seen him go, 2 for 12, because at least, he's still such a threat. And, when he's not shooting the ball on offense and he's just kind of not a part of it, it takes away everything that makes him such a special player when he's just standing there kind of not involved as much. When we saw against Marquette or the first 3 games of the season, Lamar Wilkerson, when the offense isn't necessarily going through him, but it is in a sense, Indiana's playing at their best.
Yeah, and then, when we mentioned it, obviously we want to see more out of Lamar Wilkerson, when it comes to he just needs to consistently be a guy that's getting up shots. So, But, the good thing is the bright side of all of this is obviously Indiana's got the luxury of having 2 guys in Tucker DeVries and Lamar Wilkerson. So if one of them is having an off night, there's a 50-50 chance that the other one's going to really pick up the steam. Now, if both of them are not having good nights, it's probably not good for Indiana. So, luckily, Tucker DeVries did eventually, put up 14 points and make some plays down the stretch, or else it could have gotten really, really dicey there.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things. You have the luxury of having 2 guys who can, score at will at times. And when they're both, not clicking like we saw for most of tonight, it gets dicey for Indiana. It's just one of those things, it's a November game. It's a November Sunday evening game. You mentioned Assembly Hall was a little quiet. There was a bird flying around. Just like
yes,
one of those.
That was wild, by the way. That was wild.
Did they catch the bird or did it just stop?
So they, I'm sitting up in Section K. It flew right by us, and then a couple fans were pretty scared, had a little jump scare with it, but I think it eventually flew out of one of the tunnels. So I don't know. It still could be in here. It could have been an actual cardinal that Incarnate Word sent out to distract Indiana. But just a weird 5:30 tip off. Just a weird night on Sunday. Just a weird night. And luckily Indiana comes out with the win, and they can kind of move forward to their next game on Thursday.
Yeah, that's the thing. You play bad like this, but you survive. It's a learning experience. It's hey, we need to do this, and this differently, and build off it. And you mentioned it back in action against on Thursday against Lindenwood. Another one of those bye games that Indiana should be able to cruise to in theory, but it's a game. It's a get right game in a sense. Especially with it being in between Kansas State. Indiana's fourth biggest non-con game this season. So. Got to get this stuff cleaned up moving forward, especially, the offense, and when the shots aren't falling, how do you create open looks, whether it's at the mid-range or getting to the rim when the threes aren't falling?
Yeah, and the last thing I'll just say is obviously, you can't look ahead to Kansas State. That'll be one of the bigger. I mean, it's the biggest non-conference game, even though Kansas State is not, up there with the top teams, like in the Big 12, but obviously it's the biggest non-conference, home game of the season. So it's going to be pretty exciting, and people are going to get to see Indiana go against a Power 4 school. So the big thing with Indiana, just don't overlook, Lindenwood, on Thursday. Obviously take care of business, play a lot better. I mean, the bar's pretty low. They did not play well today. So if they can just play a lot better, get the offense, clicking back on track, get tougher on defense, just take care of that on Thursday. And then next week, Kansas State coming in, just another opportunity for them to get a quality win on their NCAA tournament resume. So strange night for Indiana, but they survived, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, and we're gonna have full coverage from what Darren DeVries is saying. Probably right now, if I had to guess, I'm assuming he's on the podium right now, and whatever players are falling. Going to have all of that covered on TheHoosier.com, so make sure you're checking that site out. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to do that. Premium content with exclusive interviews, scouting reports. Indiana football just landed a Penn State flip today, Keys. So a bunch of stuff on him, his quotes from him about why he picked Indiana as well. So if you haven't seen that, make sure to go check that out. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Hoosier.com postgame wrap-up. We'll be back on Thursday with one after Kansas State.